So, as a parent, there are two ways of giving your child an allowance. One way, the way I was brought up with, is a conditional allowance. You get a set amount of money a week or a month, say $10 a week. When I was a kid, it was more like 50 cents a week. And it was conditional. You got your money on Saturday if you'd done the dishes on Thursday, if you'd made your bed every day. You know, my mom had a whole list of tasks that her 6 boys had to do. I say I was raised by a very gentle, loving, stern drill sergeant. And so her list was checked, you know, and if you did your things, then you got your money. And if you only did half the things, maybe you got half the money. The other way of giving an allowance is the way that we've chosen to raise our son, which is to give him a fixed amount every week. Actually, these days it goes directly into his debit account. But he knows how much he can spend this week on snacks or on clothes or music, whatever. And it's not conditional on what he does. It's just he's given that because he's part of our family. And he does what he does, and he's a great kid. I'm very happy about that. But that's another way of giving an allowance. And so when I sat down some years ago to come up with a summary of how it is I choose to live, and a summary of what it is that I've learned and I choose to teach and share, I chose to call it the 10 Allowances. Not the 10 rules, not the 10 commandments, not the 10 steps to enlightenment, just 10 allowances, because it's things that I give myself. It's not things that I need to do or I'll be a sinner. It's not things that should get done or I'm not quite as good a person as I should be, but things I choose to give myself unconditionally. And so this morning I'm going to take a few minutes to review those 10 allowances for myself, in part because starting tomorrow I've been given the gift of 12 days of silence. I'm going to go sit in a beautiful setting in the hill country and do my best to fast from words. I know I won't not speak or read and just be in the stillness. And as I do so, my gift to myself, my choice for myself is to follow these 10 allowances as fully as possible and make that what I do that day, because I'll be sitting in silence and won't have any social obligations. All I will give myself is this. Now, whether you have 12 days or 12 minutes or 12 seconds to think about what it is you choose to allow yourself, I invite you to consider these 10 allowances as I consider them myself. And the first allowance is to allow myself time to listen. And for me, that means particularly time in the silence. I love to start my days with 20 minutes of silence whenever possible. And for many years, that was almost a given. I'd get up and do my little thank you ritual and my morning wake up, whatever, and then I'd sit for 20 minutes. And that was just how I started my day. And then our son came along 15 years ago, and that kind of went out of the window for a while. And being a parent and living the life I do, I no longer get those 20 minutes in the first thing in the morning every day. Most days, but not every day. But I've learned that 20 minutes of sitting in the posture, in the silence, on the cushion, at the altar is one thing, but claiming 20 seconds of silence while sitting at the stoplight, waiting for the light to change, instead of racing through an orange light to beat the red, I say, oh, orange, oh, I'm being invited to stop and relax for 30 seconds. And sometimes that's real easy for me, and sometimes it's real challenging. I just pop right out of my seat, right there at the stoplight. I get all antsy, and but mostly, I choose to remember that a stoplight is an invitation to meditation for 20 seconds. And when the phone rings, I do my best to wait and not answer on the first ring and run over to the room to, where's my phone at? But to hear the phone as a temple bell to remind me, oh yes, someone's calling. And to take those extra few seconds to answer calmly from a place of centering rather than, I gotta answer the phone right here. There's a difference. and using that time to stop and listen for what else there is in the world besides my thoughts. It turns out that most of us, on average, have 50,000 thoughts a day. If you do the math, let's pretend 24 hours a day, 50,000. That's a lot like 2,000 thoughts an hour. Wow. And then really you're sleeping. So those thoughts don't count. But if you do the math, it comes out to something. For most of us, we have a thought every 5 to 6 seconds. And that's without that cappuccino. Caffeine and just the stimulus of life makes most of us go faster than that. And so having just a few minutes, a few moments of a little extra silence makes all the difference. As I listen, I'm building my listening muscle, because it turns out that most of us have forgotten how to listen to the silence. It is such a rare commodity in our culture. And we have to remember, we have the opportunity to build our listening muscle. And if I had to do push-ups, if you said right now, Rudi, drop down on the floor and give me 10 push-ups, I don't think I could do it. I might be able to do 3 or 4. But if I were to practice push-ups every day for the next couple of weeks, I could build back up to 20 or 25 push-ups readily. And my son, Mateo, has been doing push-ups for years. He just does 100 a day just because it's fun for him, and he's been doing it since he was little, and he can do 100 push-ups, no problem, because he's built the push-ups muscles. The listening muscle is no different. For most of us, our listening muscles have atrophied. And if you need a coach, hang out with your dog or your cat or your neighbor's dog or cat. Watch them listen. They can be totally in silence. Then if they hear something and they do nothing but listen when they go to listening. They do nothing but listening. Anyway, a first allowance, I spend so much time on it because it is the most important allowance. Everything else really comes back to that, taking time to do something besides listening to that yabber in your brain who's talking all the time, mostly with commands of things that you should do or should have done or didn't get done. Thank you so much for providing that soundtrack, Cheryl. Because I understand, it's just an excellent punctuation and a reminder of that's exactly what's happened to all of us. We have to consciously remember to turn off our phones and turn off our computers, because if we don't, it just keeps coming with the latest flash, the latest Amber Alert, the latest whatever. Somebody's calling you, some salesman's calling you to sell you some insurance, so you run for the phone across the room and answer it instead of claiming your space. And so the first allowance to give myself is time to listen to something other than what my culture's telling me or what my brain's yapping on about. The second allowance is allowing myself time to connect with my sense of purpose. And to know that I have a purpose. First of all, how many of you here have spent time thinking about your purpose in life? Have a statement of purpose, perhaps? Yeah, this is a very unusual group. Almost over half of us do. And not next week, but the week after, we'll be spending a little time working on a purpose statement again, because that's something I like to visit often. The notion that we're here for something besides just being the father, the friend, the husband, the worker, the consumer. We're here for something else. What are we here for? What are we here for? What are you here for? What are you here for? What am I here for? I'm clear. My purpose is to experience and express the free flow of spirit now. My purpose is to experience and express the free flow of spirit now. And anytime I'm going down my to-do list and I find myself feeling all like I'm behind, I've only gotten one thing done, there's 10 things on my list and 2 more coming, and what am I going to do next? Ideally, I stop and say, my purpose is to experience and express the free flow of Spirit now. Which one of these needs to be done next from that place of remembering what I'm here for? As opposed to, what do I do next? I got to go. Phone's ringing, I got to go. Yeah. There's a qualitative difference between acting from the outside in, being pulled by my to-do list, my wife, my son, my neighbor, my boss, and acting from the inside out. What am I here for? Third allowance is to allow yourself to follow your intuition. Now, I am disadvantaged in that respect. I'm a male. In my experience, particularly the women who've taken time to explore their inner selves are much more in touch with their intuition than men. And there are very good biological reasons for that, evolutionary reasons for that, as well as cultural reasons for that. But it's a simple fact. We men need to work on our intuition a little harder than we women do. And all of us have been told by our culture since we were this big here in America, at least those of us who were raised in this culture, have been told by our culture that our intuition doesn't count. It doesn't matter. What matters is your logic. What matters is your plan. What matters is the orders you've been given by your teacher, your boss, your culture. And that's all well and good. It's not either or. And as we connect with our intuition, our lives become richer and fuller because each one of us has something inside of us going, psst, hey Rudy, hey Chris, hey Dave, psst. There's something you really could do in this moment that's optimum. There's 1,000 things you could do, but there's one that's really optimum. And if I check in with my intuition and listen for it, it's fairly readily available, and it's directly related to that listening muscle that I was talking about in Allowance 1. Building that ability to listen to something other than that chattering brain and the logic and your plan and your goals and the schedule and the listening. The fourth allowance is to allow myself good food and drink. It's all easy to get rigid about that and talk about diets and stuff. I don't. I've been there, done that. I choose for myself simply to eat what I know is good for me. And most of us know that what foods we really do like and are good for us, as opposed to the foods that we tend to eat because they're fast and cheap and readily available. And taking time to eat those foods that work optimally make all the difference. It turns out if you really want to mess with somebody, someone is your enemy and you want to really impact their lives, all you got to do is put a cup of sugar in their gasoline tank of their car. It'll ruin their car almost instantaneously because a car can't run on sugar. It has to run on pure gasoline. Well, it turns out most of us have systems that don't run that well on sugar either. I'm talking to myself here, mostly, but maybe I'm talking to you. We live in a culture awash in sugar and refined flour, and it takes some time and ability to listen to yourself, back to step 1, allowance number 1, to listen to your body and ask, what do I want to eat? Not what is available to me, what's cheap, what's quick, what's fast, but what do the I inside of me, really long to eat? Allowance number 5 is allow myself to do what I love to do as frequently as possible. Now, me, myself, I'm very fortunate. I have created a life in which I love to write and speak and play music. That's what I love to do, and it's what I get to do professionally. It's what I do in my free time. It's what makes me happy. And I've had the good fortune to meet many, many people over the past 30 years of doing what I love to do who are also living their lives really focused on doing what I love to do. And time again, I run into people saying, yeah, right, do what you love to do. Who's got time for that? I got kids, I got a job, I work from early until late. I'll do what I love to do later on my 2 weeks off, or when the kids go off to college. And time again, I invite them, as I invite myself, to allow time to do what you love to do today. There will always be something else calling you. Always somebody else telling you you don't have time, that there's things you got to do. But doing what you love to do on a regular basis, even if it's just for 15 or 20 minutes at a time, will make all the difference in the rest of your life. And whether what you love to do is garden or paint or be with little children or just sit in silence, if you will give as I give myself time, as I allow time to do what I love to do, those things that I don't like to do that much are just easier to do because I've given myself time to create, to express, to do what I love to do. And doing what you love to do 15 minutes a day is way more powerful than the 3 days you're going to give yourself on your vacation in July. Way more powerful. Allowance number 6 is my least favorite one because it says allow yourself to do what you hate to do with as much love as you can muster. It's a tough one. Because there are some things that I avoid, like, well, I don't have to give it that much energy. You know what the things are that you avoid, and it may be cleaning the house, it may be answering those phone calls, it may be paying bills. We all have some things that we hate to do. And I remember somebody once asked my teacher, Arnold Patton, what? I've got to write the IRS a big check tomorrow, and it's a lot of money. I wasn't expecting. You expect me to do that with love? And Arnold said something I'll never forget. He said, can you imagine how the culture in our planet in our country would change if every single person sent in their IRS check with hearts and flowers and feeling of love and joy and the understanding that we are one? Whoa. So, me, myself, what I like to do least is deal with people I don't like. There are just some people who rub me the wrong way. And I find myself getting great energy from meeting those people eye to eye with an open heart as often as possible. And they do what they do. But I look at that person with as much love and joy as I can muster in that moment. You've got yours, but there's just great power in doing the things that you don't like to do with as much love and peace as you can muster. Allowance number 7 is allow myself to fail the tests, because sometimes I do. And failing is a pretty nebulous concept. Where did I even come up with that idea of failing? Because the truth of the matter is I cannot fail the test. Okay, I know I work best on a diet of greens and protein, and yet sometimes I have that piece of chocolate after the other 3 pieces of chocolate, and the 4 before that. And the next morning I wake up feeling really spacey and kind of sugared out and can't really focus, and that, no big deal. No use beating myself up. The chocolate's been eaten. I'm just here feeling spacey, and so I as much as possible, I allow myself simply to feel it and don't try to make myself pretend I can focus for those few minutes. Just, okay. I blew the morning by drinking that 2nd glass of wine, by having that 5th piece of chocolate, because I'm now sugared out and can't concentrate. Oh well, by this afternoon it'll pass. So, allow yourself to fail the test, you will, and every test is an open book test. And the answers are already there, and you know what they are. All you have to do is what? Listen. Back to allowance number 1. Allowance number 8, allow yourself to associate with people who are doing what they love to do. It makes all the difference to hang out with people that you love and who are doing what they love to do. Buying your food from the farmer's market that costs a little more than what you pay for it at Walmart or H-E-B makes a huge difference in the quality of my life. Let me speak for myself again. It's a little extra time, a little extra money. It's worth it to me because I'm buying my produce from people who are doing what they love to do and giving me their very best rather than people who showed up for work and selling me the cheapest produce they can sell from as far away as it could come at the cheapest price it could come. Same way, hanging out with, bartering with, playing with people who are doing what they love to do makes my life better because birds of a feather play together. And number 9 is allow it to be easy. If at any point I feel like I'm struggling, really stop for a moment, rest, and what? Go back to allowance number 1, which is listen. What do I really rather be doing right now? And I will never forget someone again asked Arnold Patton, my teacher, well, okay, wait, Monday morning I'm sitting at the office where I don't want to be, and you think what? I just sit there and wait until my feeling passes before I show up, before I do what I've got to do at my job? And Arnold's answer again was, can you imagine how our country would change if everyone would do precisely that? Sit at their desk and wait till the feeling comes when they can do it with complete love and ease before actually picking up the phone, before writing that email, before turning out the memo, before making the widget. If every call of everything you do is imbued with love, what has to happen? It has to return to you because as you give, so you receive. You put love into your work, comes back with love. You put ease into your work, comes back ease. You put struggle and hate and fear into your work, it comes back. And finally, number 10, allow yourself to enjoy the process of remembering when you forget, because you will forget. I forget all the time, but rather than saying, I forgot, I said, oh, I remember. Thank you for remembering, Rudi. I choose to come from a place of ease and abundance. I choose to come from a place of remembering that I always have a choice. I read a book recently that described an experiment that was done with a group of hungry young soccer players, kids on a soccer team. They studied what happened to them when after a big soccer game, these sweaty kids were brought to have an all-you-can-eat buffet. And they could eat whatever they wanted, as much as they wanted, except one half of the kids was given a 12-inch plate and one half of the kids was given a 9-inch plate. And a 9-inch plate is only 30% smaller than the 12-inch plate, but people ate 70% more on those larger plates because the plates were larger. They're just unconscious. The little kids weren't thinking. They could have as much as they want. Unfailingly, the kids with the larger plate ate more than the kids with the smaller plate because we are not conscious of how we respond to environmental cues and to our habits. So all I'm suggesting is that I allow myself, as you allow yourself to become more conscious of your choices, the quality of our lives change. At least that's my journey. And that's my story. But I'm sticking to it.